fitting that after a half hour into my flight, I was awoken to the gaze of a tiny assassin. She was 4 years old. Her name was Lila, and she thought I was a man. And how did I know this? Was I some sort of psychic gifted with a sixth sense? Some heady mind-reading savant? Was I some modern-day oracle who could creep into the minds of sugar-addled toddlers everywhere and disseminate their information simply by feeling the balmy wind of their hot, sugary breath upon my face? No. The only thing it seemed I was gifted with at the moment was the ability to hear and understand English, even that of a babbly 4-year-old, with a stain of Skittles on her face and a pacifier around her neck. Basically, I was told in a way only a 4-year-old can, over and over and over again. Hey, mister, my name is Lila, what's your name? My name is Lila. Lila. Mister? I'm so embarrassed right now. I bit my lower lip and I stared out the window, and for the first time in 3 days I saw my reflection. And my God, it was positively jarring. Not only did I look like a man, I looked like the kind of man that slept in the last car of the F train under a 4-year-old edition of the New York Post. I hadn't slept or bathed in 4 days. There was a weird stain on my cheek that I hoped was chocolate. There was an even weirder stain on my other cheek that I hoped wasn't blood. I had a unibrow that was composed of something other than hair. Sorry. And on each side of my mouth, a crusty 3-day-old face foundation had matted into the graying tusk of my unplucked Fu Manchu. To make matters worse, beyond my reflection, the sky had turned catastrophically bleak. The cumulus clouds surrounding us looking like cotton balls that had been used to exhume the faces of a blasted coal miner. So there was that, the idea that any moment our plane would take a nosedive and christen the eastern seaboard with our charred and scattered remains. My name is Lila, mister, I'm 4. How old are you? She said, lisping and rocking happily in her seat. And it is at that moment, while the plane rocks us through yet another bout of terrifying turbulence, that little Lila takes the terror to another level and places her index finger snugly up her nostril and begins to thrust her pelvis repeatedly against her seat. And let's not even talk about how unsafe that is, to pick your nose while masturbating. And let's not even go into the abhorrent hygiene of having your finger up your nostril while you're humping a dirty airplane seat. Let's talk about me. And how even as the tray table is stalking me in the stomach, how I wondered, how had it come to this? I sat. That's all I did. I sat. I sat in my seat, 23C, sat in the way that the middle-aged stewardesses with their tired, sun-beaten faces had demonstrated only a half hour before. My face beaming at them with the intent to follow the rules. Sat like I was told to do, with my seatbelt wound around, erect, with my meager possessions safely stowed under the seat in front of me. I was doing the right thing. I was sitting. And not only sitting, but refolding and unfolding in an attempt to accommodate the fat asshole next to me, whose girth had descended into my seat like a slow-moving lava flow. I was practically canonizing myself with all this sitting, because I couldn't have made myself more saintly or more uninteresting if I tried, and I really tried. And there I was, cradling my slimy head in my slimy hand, a migraine settling behind my eyes as she was practically pumping the seat in front of me off its foundation, forced to hide behind a shaking hand from the obscenity of a masturbating 4-year-old. She that I knew sitting there, as I sat tucked and pinned miserably in my seat, fingering the sticky Sky Mall catalog that I was sure was probably ripe with syphilis, that the sucky universe had apparently set before me just to fuck me over. Because in my mind and in my experience, the universe is typically a fucking overly judgmental asshole who doesn't have all the facts straight, constantly dealing out the karmic backlash as if it knows everything about everything. And just like that, I start to sob. Not just sob, I'm bawling. And I don't even know why. I'm just broken down and I'm hiccuping, a river of snot streaming into my mouth, my hands thrown over my dirty face, my torso pressed against my knees. And it is at this time Lila takes a moment, not to console, or even just to stop masturbating, but to finally take her finger out of her nostril and point it directly at me. "You're a baby," Lila screamed. "Baby, baby, baby, baby." Yet unsatisfied with the one baby, she goes on to list all the babies that I am. "You a mean baby. You a big baby. And lastly, you a ugly baby." This while the little asshole is reaching her pinnacle. And her mother? Where is she? She is safely under the cloaked silence of a pair of noise-canceling headphones. And it is only after I wipe away my tears I realize that maybe Lila was right. This horrible manifestation of evil was correct in disseminating my character. And sitting there, still clutching the venereal disease-laden Sky Mall catalog, I realized something else. As I stared at stained page after page of shit I didn't need, that no one was ever going to love me. Which was kind of ridiculous, because someone had done just that. Had not only done it, they had said it. Said it out loud. Said it in notes, texts, emails, and finally had said it 3 days ago while dressed in lingerie, perched on one knee with a ring box in her hand. Okay. Thank you. I have one more piece. Do I have time? Okay. This is actually from earlier in her life, so she's about 22 and she's about to leave home for the first time. But back to my mother and how it seemed that by coming out in my lesbian state, it had caused her nothing but misery. And at 22, when I announced I would be moving out after quitting college to work in a restaurant, this did nothing to alleviate her concern for my predilection for pussy. "You work in a goddamn cafeteria. How can you tell me it doesn't matter that you're a lesbian?" she screamed. Yet when I tried to explain that a restaurant and a cafeteria were not the same thing, and that even if they were, it had nothing to do with my being a lesbian, it made no difference to her. To her, my recent vocation and upcoming relocation had everything to do with her belief in my desire to spend my days face deep in the various snatches around town. "You can go to hell for all I care." She waved her hands in the air, then slammed a set of car keys, a bread plate, a dirty fork upon the kitchen table, finally deciding to forego the table altogether and hurl a pair of sunglasses across the room, breaking them in half against the wall just inches from my head. And there I was, ducking for cover, trapped in that room with all I had in the world, 3 overstuffed suitcases spilling over my feet and a tote bag of toiletries clutched in my sweaty palm. Yet even as I cowered behind our living room sofa, pining for a way out, I could see what was eating her up. What was absolutely killing her inside. It was this, that in the dark recesses of her demented mind, that loopy wheel well, turning in her brain, she thought that somehow this imaginary act of me eating out every single goddamn woman in town would somehow dietarily dilute my drive to succeed. Which meant it would keep me from becoming a real live grown person with a college degree, a child, and a house. All the things she thought would keep me safe. All the things she thought had kept her safe. "I could never do that. Do what you're doing," my mother said, looking downright eerie, shadowed through the mini blinds, a glint of slotted sunshine splitting her face in two. "I had to get married. I had to have children. I couldn't just sleep with women all day." And no doubt this is what she thought I'd do all day. How she imagined I would bide my time in my new apartment. I'd get up in the morning, brush my teeth, and then begin my day of lesbian debauchery. Only taking time from my perpetual muff diving to grab a sandwich for sustenance. Then when the sky had dimmed and the sun had set, I would finally come up for air. Beat from a hard day of making my mother's life a living hell, because according to her, that's what I lived for. I would then retire my diddle dam to the bathroom receptacle and punch out for the day, because what else do lesbians do other than depress their mothers and perform oral sex on each other like it's a 9-to-5 job? Thank you.